Welcome back to Switch to Linux. So we are back running with the main new system, new computer build, so hopefully we won't run into any bugs. I've also been updating some of the banners. I'm going to continue to update some of the things that I'm doing on the channel as we move towards that 10,000 subscriber goal, so thanks for watching. Today we are going to have a look at Zorin OS 12.3. We're going to be doing a quick look at this system. And the Zorin 12.3 has several different features. First, we're just going to go ahead and look at the main site, talk a little bit about Zorin on the basis, and then we'll see if we can find that the new post to see what's new here. All right, so here at their website, which is zorinos.com, you can download Zorin over here, and if you hit your download, there is the Ultimate Edition. This one is a paid version, and what the Ultimate Edition comes with is a lot of different software packages put in. If you're brand new to Linux and you're considering Zorin, then this is a good option because it kind of has all of the, all your bases covered, including some different specific themes to theme it like Windows, theme it like Mac, however you want. There is some antivirus installed, probably ClamAV is my guess. We have a full LibreOffice suite, and they have some compatible Windows applications. That's the Zorin Ultimate. There is also a core, which just contains the basics, which you can do 0, 10, 25, or a custom. And the Zorin core, really the difference is you get the extra theme packs and some extra applications are installed. Many of the extra applications that are installed, you can actually add yourself. There's some like the themes, I think you need to buy them to use those. There is a Lite. I'm not exactly sure what all is in the Lite application. I would be a little bit leery of using Zorin. That brings us to Lite. Let's see. The thing that makes me a little bit leery about using Zorin on an older or a low-spec PC is unless they've changed things around a little bit, Zorin uses the Gnome shell, which, like it or not, it is a heavier resource shell. And so it usually takes a little over 1 gigabyte of RAM of basic usage in order to use Gnome. And so that's something to keep in mind. I'm not sure if the Gnome Lite gives us a different desktop experience. I'm not really seeing it here. And maybe somebody in the comments knows a little bit more about that. But anyway, your basic Zorin uses the regular Gnome shell. Not my favorite desktop, but I do like what they have done with it. They've really done a lot of work to customize it. So one of the things we're going to look at is we're going to look at a system monitor before we get to doing anything and see, did they lighten it up a little bit? Because it is possible to lighten it up. So if you come up to your blog, you can come over here and you can see the 12.3 was released. So we're going to have a look at the release notes. And this is the one we're going to be looking at today, and we're running this inside of a virtual machine. So they have Zorin OS 12.3. One of the things that they have done is they've added the Wine 3.0 support. This is supposed to be a much better Wine application. Now, on my live stream tomorrow, we are going to attempt to install some applications through this with Wine. That's kind of what my goal is, as long as it works. But anyway, because I have not had a chance to look at Wine 3.0, I've heard they've done a lot of great things with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install an application that I know works well. I'm going to install an application that I could never get working under Wine. I'm going to install an application that I could get working under Wine, but it just doesn't work too well. So those are 3 Windows applications I'm going to attempt to run on Zorin with Wine 3.0 configured. So let's see, in the desktop, other things, they've paid close attention to feedback, improved how the desktop works. Enhancements help make the Zorin OS desktop easier and more intuitive for newcomers and advanced users. So file and folder management is changed a little bit. printer jobs. Maybe I'll actually turn on a printer, see if it finds it. Windows list launchers. So they're giving us a little animation what that is. So that's kind of that popover effect. I actually hate those things when they put them into Windows. But if you like them, they will have an option there to view them. I hated them because they always got in my way of doing things. I get the mouse too close to the bottom, and I get this thing pops up when I'm trying to do something on the bottom of the screen. You also have some of the latest software, so we're just going to have a look at what versions of the software installed in here. And all editions, Core, Lite, Ultimate, and Business and Education are available immediately. So if you are interested in Zorin, have a look at their website and see what you think there. So with that being said, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get Zorin over here on the desktop. And here we are on the Zorin desktop. So this is running on a virtual machine. You'll see that this is kind of like the Windows type layout. So we're going to come over here before we do anything else. I'm going to run the system monitor just to see what the system is running on. So my virtual box, I've given it 4 cores and I've given it 6 gigs of RAM. I used to give these 8, but this computer has less RAM than the last one did. So you can see it is still running on just under a gigabyte of RAM. That's the thing that makes me curious, and if you do know in the comments, I would very much like to know, does Zorin Lite run with a different desktop environment? How light actually is it? You can see where it's running about 10-ish% on each of the 4 cores of the CPU, and that's how that's doing. We do have the Chromium web browser installed. We have Geary. I hate it that all these distros are starting to use Geary. I hate that application. Geary is just too limited. That's why I hate it. It's just too limited. It's basically like a desktop client for a webmail access. We need to learn how to manage our own email again, people. That's what I don't like about Geary. So let's see what else is installed. You can see that the menu here is definitely not the basic Gnome menu. I really like how they have this set up. I love the color schemes. The blue color scheme on this is very nice. It's a beautiful layout. We have our home folder, documents, downloads, etc. over here. We have software. We have settings. Let me see. Can I actually do anything? It looks like I can actually work off of the desktop. One of the things that several distros is kind of lacking is the right-clicking new document. This is one of those fine details that they have paid attention to the small details, like putting some basic information in the templates folder. If you are new to Linux and you don't know how to put something on this menu, all you have to do is save a copy of that type of document into the templates folder in your home directory. They did say they're the latest applications. However, LibreOffice is up to version 6. This is still running version 5. So I'm not sure what is up with that. In fact, wow, this is actually a much older version of LibreOffice. So I'm now a little bit confused as to, they said that it was all the latest applications, but that is, not only is it not the latest LibreOffice, it's actually quite an old copy of LibreOffice. I think even Linux Mint gives you like 5.3 or something. But anyway, let's just go ahead. We click in on that. I'm not a huge fan of how this menu works because you click it and then you have everything there. You have to come down and hit the back. I do like the menu where you click it and it populates over here, but that's okay. That's certainly not something that you would want to get mad about. So we have an activity journal, calculator, clocks, documents, photos, text editor, and a weather app. I want to see if the weather app works. I'm running my weather app over on Ubuntu over here, and it doesn't actually work. So I type in start typing in my city. It seems to work. And now I also want to see if it seems to line up right, because once again, my Ubuntu over here is telling me it's, what's it telling me? It's not even telling me the temperature right now. It stopped telling me the temperature. 36 cloudy. Weather Channel says 36 cloudy, so the weather app working great. So that's good. That's awesome. That works out well. As far as our games, we have Solitaire, Mahjong, Mines, Sudoku, Quadripassel, I guess. Let's have a look at which Solitaire this is. All right. This is the Gnome version of Solitaire. This is not, I mean, it works beautifully fine, but at the same time, it's kind of ugly cards. The KDE version application for playing cards is gloriously beautiful. This one's okay, but at least you got it. As far as graphics, we start with the GIMP image editor, LibreOffice, and Simple Scan. Once again, we're going to pull up GIMP image editor. So that's 2.8. So I think there is a slightly newer GIMP. I haven't really seen it out here yet. GIMP, if you're unaware, is more like a Photoshop type replacement. This is, I mean, I use GIMP on a daily basis. It does pretty much everything Photoshop does. Few little things that are different. Most of those little things, if I need them, I can actually get them on another application called Krita, which we could install on this if we wanted to. Internet, we have Chromium, Empathy, there's a Zorin web browser manager. I think this is really cool. Because suppose Chromium is not your favorite browser, you want to use like Firefox, or web is just a GNOME browser, you can very quickly install any of these that you want. You do need to enter your password. I just love the contrasty colors. It reminds me of the computer I had in college, where I'd made everything all black, and all of the contrast lines were just neon green. Those were back in the days when you actually ran, you were able to run things like a DVD encoder as your background default color, and so literally I'd be playing movies and across all the back, and just all the spreadsheets whenever I was working on top of the movie. It was just so cool. So anyway, now we've went ahead and we should now see Firefox and the basic web in here. I think you can drag these down, just dragging them right on down onto the menu. These behave like pinned menus. Once again, if you know my videos, this is not my preferred way of doing things, but it is the modern way of doing things. Firefox, it does look like it is up to date. Firefox 59.0.1, that is the most up-to-date version of Firefox as of this video, I believe. So that's good. So it looks like, the LibreOffice is not quite where it should be yet, but that's okay. Let's pull up the base here. So it's still 5.1. That's odd that everything else is so up to date. That was one of their release notes, but their Office version is still very old. Brassario is for recording CDs. So if you're coming from a Windows or a Mac platform and you would need some to go buy or download some other application to write a CD, whether this is a DVD or just a standard CD, Brassario will work great for you. Cheese is for interacting with your web camera. Pitivi is another one of the video editors, very much like Kden Live. We have Rhythmbox which is a sound, basically music and things. The cool thing about Rhythmbox, as you're working on Rhythmbox, is you can actually come down here and also put podcasts in, so you can find podcasts and insert those in as well. That's the reason I still keep Rhythmbox on systems. I'm not a huge fan of the layout, the organization for how I happen to set things up. I like Lollipop works for me, Banshee works for me, Clementine works for me. Rhythmbox, not so much, but I always use Rhythmbox specifically for the podcast I want to subscribe to. So I run two music players because this does podcasting beautifully. And it's an all around good audio player. Video is just a basic lightweight GNOME video player. Zero problems with that. That's my preferred default for any type of video. System tools. So the additional drivers tool is a very useful function. The additional drivers tool will allow you to install other drivers. So for example, I just pulled this guy up, and the thing will do an automatic scan of everything, and it says that right here we have, using x86 virtualization solution, X11 guest utilities from the VirtualBox, which is a proprietary driver. So I can select to use that or not use that. Now, the way the Linux philosophy goes is a lot of people want to avoid using your proprietary drivers because the theory is you don't really know what's going on in the background. But your more user-friendly distros are going to give you those options through these driver tools. This is a great option because if something's not working right, the biggest one I've encountered is if you have a Broadcom wireless card in your computer, a lot of your Linux distros will not use that out of the box. You need to get into this guy, toggle that switch on, reboot the computer, and now it'll work. Now the downside is you need a little bit of an internet connection to get that one to work. This one here, I'm not going to bother setting that because this is just a continual. But anyway, the additional drivers will enable you to find extra drivers for your computers that have not automatically been installed by the kernel, which is the way the Linux system runs. Okay, we have the backup utility. So the backup here will go through. You can select which folders you're going to save, which folders to ignore, your storage location. So where do you want this to save? I want to see, I want to see if I can actually install this on... Looks like I cannot install it on a network device by default. What you could do is you can write a script to mount a network share as a folder, and that will work. I have a video about how to do that on Linux Mint. There's scheduling. You can turn it on automatically to automatically make backups. Again, this will automatically make backups, but if you don't manually transfer them somewhere off the computer, they're not quite as useful for you. I gotta go back up to System Tools. Disks is the default disk application. Your online accounts, this is something that is inside of the Gnome shell. Now, this will allow different types of functionality. So if you, and this actually says it's using different functions than it used to. So I'm curious if they've updated this. I don't know. So basically, if you log into your Google account here, the one thing that it used to do is it would give you an extra folder always mounted. In fact, this is how you could probably do that. I might actually test this out a little bit. So let me see if this can support... I'm not seeing that a lot of other systems do support, so I'm curious if this is not the most up-to-date or what the situation is here. But many of these online account preferences, particularly the one in Linux Mint, and I thought the one, let me see if the one over here in Budgie does. So yes, Budgie does this as well. So you have the option to do like Nextcloud, you have Facebook, Microsoft, a lot of other applications in here. Maybe this is just preferences though. Let me go ahead and double check. That was just preferences. Here you go. Add an online account. My apologies. I don't use this feature frequently. You'll have to forgive me for that. So now, if you happen to have something like any of these types of accounts, a Google account for a drive, a Microsoft account, I personally have my own OwnCloud account. So I have set up an OwnCloud. I could actually set this guy up with an OwnCloud account. What that's going to do is it's going to create for you a mounted network drive that you should be able to access in the backups. So as long as your computer can start up, get on the internet, it will automatically log in, produce that particular mounted volume. In theory, you should be able to make a backup to that automatically. I'm going to test that in a future video. That sounds like a great video for a future test. So you can see there's just a lot of different things. There's an other as well. So my apologies, that first one I saw was just preferences. I didn't, you can see it just said online accounts. That's why that tripped me up there. Inside of your settings, inside of Zorin, this is where you have the very nice Zorin appearance application. This is going to determine how do you want your system to run. This is more like the classic Gnome shell, like this. You can pull up your activities. You have your bar over here. You can pull up your different workstations over on this side here. you have this layout here. And it looks, okay, and this one here. So it looks like this one might actually function more like the way I want it to function. I'm going to double check that. Oh, beautiful. Woohoo! So yes, that's actually the function I like to see. I like to be able to come down here and click on this and get a separate window each time I click it and have them all appear down here. So you have that option. That's the middle one, the layout options. Let's just go ahead and stick with that one because I like that. Of course, over here, if you want to use things like I want my mounted volumes, network stuff on my desktop, I can do that. Here's your themes. I really did like the blue, but you can actually select different themes. So here's white, red. Here's like a black, red type theme. So there's just a variety of different theme color options that you can pick from by default. And so that's actually a really nice function as well. Let me see what matches. I really just kind of want to stick with the blue. I'm going to stick with the blue. Here's your fonts. You can change all your fonts over, and you can determine, is your panel on the top, on the bottom? Do you auto hide it? What's the size of it? What's the opacity of it? So, you know, you can make it, you know, really dark. You can make it really, really light. I kind of like this. That's kind of how I have my budgie running back behind me right here. I really kind of like this, where you can still see the picture behind you, but it's just kind of faded in. It's just beautiful. There's a show desktop button. That's a function that I love to have down there. So let's go ahead and do that. So I can just kind of say right now, man, this is just, Zorin's just sweet. This is just sweet. Here's where you can add your online accounts like we had found. I knew I could search for it in the menu if it was there. But privacy settings, screen lock is turned on. Usage and history is on. Purge. Trash and temporary files is set off by default. That will enable me to right-click my trash can to empty it. And then location services is turned on or turned off. So you can, it is turned off by default. We have our displays. We have tablets, usages, backups, time date, firewall configurations. So that's what you're going to find inside of all of your settings. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the software updater. Okay, so loading the software updater, that's now checking to make sure everything is up to date. So it says it's finished there. Let's see if it gives me any update notice. Okay, so it says that there is a little bit of updates to the system. My guess is the reason why it's probably still pulling the old LibreOffice is they are using, probably still using Ubuntu 16.04 as the base. And if they are, the old LibreOffice is still in there. If they were using the new version, the newer version, then that would be it would be the 6.0. We are going to restart later because I don't want to interfere with restarting right now. Let's go ahead and have a look at the software now. So again, if you are new to Linux, you can come into the Software Center. This is the Gnome Software Center. So here there are updates. I think those are already installed. If you come up to your main view here, you can actually see that there's a variety of different applications that they pick. So if you're into Spotify, Skype, OBS Studio, which is what I'm using to record this video, you have all those. AbiWord is kind of another lighter weight LibreOffice type thing. GNU Cache is an advanced application for doing books and accounting. Evolution, this is my primary email client of choice on Linux. This is basically functions like Outlook. So if you are a robust email user, you know what you're doing, you want to grab tons of emails, put it all in one folder, use a bunch of rules and sets to keep everything organized, Evolution is the system you want to use. If you want to use a better, like just a simpler, more like the Apple Mail type or even now the Windows Mail type application, Thunderbird is probably your choice. I am not a huge fan of the Geary. A lot of applications have been moving towards because it's extremely limited in what it can do. There is MailSpring. This also requires a MailSpring account. I'm a little leery of that kind of stuff, but anyway. do that. You can also come down and look into your categories. There's a variety of different categories down here that you can get into and see what is where. All right. Now, the last thing we're going to look at is Wine. Wine being pre-installed. Wine is a Windows. It stands for Wine is not an emulator, is what it stands for. At least it did. And Wine will allow you, it's a compatibility layer that will allow you to run Windows executable programs on your computer. The reason I don't recommend Zorin quite as much as I could with how much I really love everything else it does is that Wine should never be installed on a computer unless you specifically plan to use it. I would love to see an option to say, will you be running Windows applications in the installer? Yes, no. Yes, let's go ahead and just run it. The reason is because while it's great to have the ability to have this Linux system that everyone's saying, it's Linux, it's now more secure. Not if you have Wine installed, because Wine will allow you to play Windows applications, which means Windows viruses can now affect your Linux box. That's the reason I don't like to recommend distros that come with Wine pre-installed. Regardless, Zorin has always been a distro that says we want to work with Wine. We want to target people who still do want to try and use some Windows applications. And there are some very popular games that will play perfectly fine on Linux under Wine. And we're going to explore the Wine features on this on a different video down the road. Play on Linux is a simple installer for Wine. So if you want to actually use Wine best, you probably want to use Play on Linux. I did meant to hit the Configure Wine button when I clicked that, so let's go ahead and click on that. So here it's loading up, and it does say that this should have the latest version of Wine, which is the 3.0. It should have some DirectX 10 and possibly 11 support. If you actually use Windows applications, let me know for sure. I have like 4 that I use on my other computer. So that's being updated. So we're going to give that a minute to finish updating and see what it does. I guess while that's going, the other things here, if you're looking for configuration, you'll see that our clock is on 24-hour time. You should be able to come down here and I thought you could come down here and edit it. I think you'll have to edit that from another place. All right, so here you get something that looks very much like a like an old Windows platform. You can pick which Windows version you are trying to emulate. So here we're going to try and emulate Windows 7. Here's libraries. What this is if you need to install some type of library for whatever reason. So if you get into looking at some of the Windows applications, you might see, it requires Flash, it requires this, requires that. That's what this is going to allow you to do. It's going to allow you to come down here and add new libraries into there. Here's your graphics, desktop integration. So it does say we are on Wine 3.0 here. I did find a problem with a Linux Mint that I was running did not get audio. I'm not sure why. I didn't bother trying. We were just trying to look into a game or everything. So what this is going to do is it's going to create a little drive inside of your home folder, and I'm going to try to find it. Got to remember where it is. All right, so holding Control and pushing H will show your hidden folders. It might be, okay, so it's under .wine, drive C. This is where you're going to find your Windows programs. So if you are looking for some Windows application, this is kind of where you go. So here, let's double click on that. Let's see what that does. Oh yeah, now we're running Windows Explorer, or Wine Internet Explorer, baby. There you go. What else is in here? Windows Media Player. See, and this is the danger of having Wine. You'll see that it'll, if I have Wine installed, I double click on an executable file, it will generally know what to do with it. It looks like that one may not be working. While we're doing seeing if that loads, what I'm going to do is, if you are interested in using Wine, you want to head on over to WineHQ. I think it's winehq.org if I remember correctly. So winehq.org is your place to determine if an application is going to run. So here's the stable is the one we have. There's that. So what you want to do is come up into your app database, and suppose you want to play something like let's look up Borderlands. That's one of the games that I have liked on Xbox before. So you can look up Borderlands, and then you'll see that what version do you have. If you have the DVD version 1.0, back up there, it says garbage. What that means is it really doesn't work well. But you'll notice that if you have patch versions with imported fixed patch versions here, and the Steam version, constantly updated Steam version, Platinum. Platinum is the best. So the rating is I think garbage, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, if I remember correctly. So this will tell you if it runs. So what this says is, if I want to run Borderlands, if I load this up, so let's go ahead and just look into Steam. Okay, so here's the Steam official release. Is that? No, that's not it. I'm sorry. I don't use Steam, guys. My apologies. That's what I was looking for. I think. From Valve. There you go. So the official release from Steam runs at gold, which means it runs well. So with Wine being installed on this, I could go in and I could install Steam. And from Steam, then running the Windows version of Steam with Wine, I could then download Wine games. Another one, a friend of mine asked me about this the other day. Let's look at Cuphead, which of course is a Steam-based game. So we're going to do WineHQ. Is it? There's GOG Cuphead. So GOG Cuphead, they say it runs at a platinum. So in other words, it says that everything should work. So he's currently doing the entire game under Wine. And I apologize, I don't know anything about GOG either. I'm not a gamer, guys. I apologize. But anyway, here's Cuphead's Steam version. So Cuphead Steam version says silver. So if you are wanting to play Cuphead, let's see. So Manjaro Linux says, this guy says silver. Ubuntu 17.04 says silver. This guy's running Ubuntu 16.04. He says it's gold. Arch Linux says it's silver. Ubuntu 16. And these are the Wine versions, garbage. I'm not seeing anything from the latest Wine versions. So this is where you just want to look up the applications you want to run. So that is where you want to go to look into this. Again, the upside is you can run Windows executable files on Zorin right out of the box. The downside is you can run Windows executables right out of the box. That means viruses will run on your system. So keep that in mind as a caution. If you are wanting to use Zorin but not needing Windows applications, you should probably uninstall Wine as the first thing that you do when you run this. Otherwise, Zorin does appear to be a very nice system. I like what they've done with it. It's very easy to use. It is just a beautiful system overall. And overall, it's just it's great. I mean, it's a great little system. It's that Wine pre-installed that kind of prevents me from recommending it a lot. However, if there are some Windows applications you need to use, double check. If they work under Wine, Zorin might very well be the OS for you. So thanks for watching this video. You can help support the channel at switch2linux.com/support. I got to streamline some of these things because I'm starting to tongue-tie myself. Over there, you can find links to the Amazon, which will also be in the description below. There's also some PayPal links there as well. There are some merchandise things if you want to get things like I have nice mouse pads, which you see pictured there, coffee cups, t-shirts, things like that at shop.switchtolinux.com. That will redirect you to Spreadshirt, where you can find information on those. I'm also on Patreon, patreon.com/TomM. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.